everybody. Welcome to OpenCV Weekly Webinar. And today we have Minsoo Lee, who is the founder of Bluebox Labs, which is a company that has created a very amazing product called the Copilot, the Bluebox Copilot. We will learn about that and how developers can use the Copilot for their AI applications, etc. But this Copilot is targeted towards ride-sharing drivers. But we will see it gives you a lot of data that you can collect for your own AI application. And Minsoo will talk about it in a bit. And I'll let Minsoo introduce himself in just a bit. But before that, I want to introduce Phil Nelson, who is the content manager at opencv.org. Hi, Phil.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. As a reminder, at the end of the webinar, we'll be doing Q&A, probably about 15, 20 minutes. Please use the Zoom Q&A functionality to ask your question at any point during the webinar, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end. We'll also be doing a trivia question where you can win a very cool prize. Do you want to tell them what they'll win, Satya?
Well, Minsoo has gladly offered to give away one Copilot. So the Bluebox Copilot would be available in February. That's the only catch. Whoever wins this Bluebox Copilot today will have to wait until February, but I think it is worth the wait. This amazing device would be available to you in February. So that's the thing they will win. And it's our standard question and answer. You know, we will ask a question based on, it's a really trivia question that will be based on the presentation. So if you're listening to the presentation carefully, there's a good chance that you will win this. And be fast on the keyboard. Things usually, you know, before we finish the question, the answers are there. So be very fast on your keyboard. So now let's get started. I want to welcome Minsoo Lee. Thank you so much for being on our weekly webinar. And I know that the notice was really short. Thanks for putting the presentation quickly. Because it's an extremely busy week for you. You just are in the middle of a Kickstarter campaign. So take it from here, Minsoo. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for being here, everyone. My name is Minsoo. I'm a founder and CEO of Bluebox. And yeah, as Satya mentioned, we just launched our Kickstarter to kind of introduce the product and get to volume manufacturing. And yeah, today I'm hoping to kind of share more about the product, why you might find it valuable, and just kind of our roadmap in terms of what we're trying to build for the next, hopefully, it's long-term roadmap.
So your mic's a little bit quiet, Minsoo. You might want to turn it up.
Yeah, let me figure this out.
So one of the things people ask is, you know, is OGD used in any product? And it is being used in many products, OpenCV AI Kit with depth, but we are not always able to talk about it because, you know, people want to save the product announcement. But this is out in public now. The mechanism of OGD, it's not the exact OGD, but with a different form factor, is being used in the Copilot. So that's another connection we have.
Yeah, it's literally built in, and yeah, you'll be able to use the same library for deployment and testing. Yeah, so should I start the?
Yeah, let's start the presentation.
Sounds good. So yeah, again, thank you for being here. Today's chat is called Turning Your Car into a Robot with Copilot. So a little bit of background about me first. So I have a bachelor's degree in electrical and computer engineering from University of Rochester. My research background is in mobile robot navigation, kind of the traditional approach. And I was advised by Professor Howard, who was part of the 2007 DARPA challenge Carnegie Mellon team that actually won the challenge, and one of the team members actually kind of spun out this Waymo project. And I was a founding electrical engineer at this YC-backed VR hacky checker company. And before kind of like going into the full story, short kind of blurb description about the Copilot. So it's essentially a computing platform built for your car. So the analogy that I just use is kind of looking at your smartphone. Kind of before that, there used to be kind of many different single application gadgets, like ranging from the MP3 player to digital camera to cell phone itself, that became just software applications and one general purpose hardware that serve the environment of being in the palm of your hand with the right sensor and right compute and right input device to actually enable those. So we're doing a kind of similar thing with Copilot as a platform and enabling kind of helpful applications. So as you can see from our page, we're starting off with 4 modules as first developers in this platform. One is dashcam, obviously that records video incident out with night vision, and talking to your vehicle for automatic mileage logging, as well as engine diagnosis, as you might be able to find in some OBD gadgets, as well as security camera that actually provides kind of 24/7 break-in detection and live video streaming when it's broken into. And as a development platform, we kind of allow these kind of various sensors that is necessary in vehicle settings. Yeah, I'll get more into that in a bit.
So Minsoo actually sent me a unit just for testing. I have put it in my car. The only feature I've not been able to test is the break-in feature. Nobody has broken into my car. So
yeah, hopefully that happens soon.
I'll see if I can help you out with that. Yeah, I'll just roll by real quick.
Right.
Yeah, so founding story, simplest description of our team is kind of a ragtag team, like working out of garage and living room offices. We were founded in 2017, mostly bootstrapped, and raised a kind of angel round for finishing this commercial version of the Copilot during COVID last year. And yeah, a lot of constraints from kind of just the hardware factor. You know, hardware is hard to the past year to kind of this the like remote hardware development that had to follow for this commercial version. But yeah, we were able to get through that. And actually these constraints ended up being kind of blessing in terms of just putting the right enough pressure on us to kind of continue to iterate the hardware, which is often missing when it comes to kind of first launch of these hardware products. And yeah, we also drove for Lyft and DoorDash and did the Airbnb thing as well to kind of get going.
I actually really like that you chose to drive a Lyft and do DoorDash because, you know, as an engineer, you could have done many other side gigs to you know, support yourself while you were building this product, but you chose to do Lyft because you get this first-hand experience of a driver, right? So you know what their pain points are and what they need. And once you have actually lived through that experience, I think it helps you make better products. So kudos to your team.
Thank you. And yeah, we obviously try to talk to as many drivers as possible, but just being in the same exact shoe, just kind of going through the daily struggles. Yeah, that definitely helped a lot with the product development as well. And on that, yeah, why are we doing this? The obvious main reason is to help drivers. And this got started initially because we in my previous company, we were kind of 5 people startup that kind of shared this one car, and there was this dash cam in there with this annoying blinking blue light that I was just staring at on tired drive back home and just wondering why is it that this kind of hardware gadget categories everywhere in Asia, like Korea, for example, but not in the US. Dash cams are called black box in Korea, by the way. And that was kind of the beginning part. And throughout the iterations, basically, initially we even tried kind of this voice assistant kind of thing as well. But before arriving at this kind of 4 modules. I decided that kind of this right computing platform with, again, the right sensors, right interface, and right compute that can run any car-related applications. Just kind of turn these gadgets into applications. That just made sense. And kind of on a tangent, I promise there's a point to this. Also, my kind of side thoughts around how do we get robots, autonomous agents to work in the real world. And yeah, again, I'll go into that a bit. And the team, we're a tiny team, actually, that kind of ended up doing everything outside the title that you see there. So Jesse is our software lead. He studied computer engineering at University of Rochester. Han Yang, our embedded software developer, he was studying computer science at University of Washington, and Levi studied industrial engineering at Utah. We're kind of Utah, the wild one out. Yeah, like basically I was lucky enough to put this small but kind of extremely effective kind of magicians for being able to kind of finish up the product and put it out there. And it's been a long journey, but again, that kind of constraints really allowed us to kind of continue to iterate and go from this Raspberry Pi based clear box to what it is today. So yeah, initially, like finding the product was the and justifying that obviously took the longest time. So initially, I was thinking like even like Alexa integration because back in the day, like that's when the Alexa was booming, and the kind of more thinking about it, the like killer applications for that was mostly around just timer or playing music. We really focused more on just kind of utility applications that add value to drivers, even tax savings from day one as a starting point. And got to this proof of concept unit you see here on the right side that is still Raspberry Pi based and 3D printed, but it has the kind of all the functionalities that I mentioned above from just a dash cam, miles saver, and blue mechanic. And it became a reality when we started selling those, right? So we actually just for the kind of initial sales, we got like a box of coffee and donuts and drove down to Uber and Lyft drivers waiting lot at SeaTac Airport and just started inviting drivers for donuts and showing the demos. And actually we ended up selling out kind of 25 units that we hand assembled in like 5 visits, and building this kind of organic word of mouth among drivers who really like this kind of platform features is all in one, because they usually have to kind of get individual gadgets with us.
That's amazing. I have this little story to add here.
Yeah, sure.
Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, when they were pretty young, the first product they built was actually called a Bluebox, and this Bluebox was used to make illegal international calls. So they would use this device to plug into phone lines, and it would allow them to make international calls for free illegally, right? And they actually hand assembled a lot of these and sold it to a lot of people. So you mentioned that it has nothing to do with that Bluebox. The origin story, the Bluebox name has nothing to do with that Bluebox. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I was aware of it, but yeah, it was kind of like around like, brain as a black box to kind of dash cam as a black box. It's kind of
right.
Black box, blue box. And in the spirit of the original Bluebox, our product is not blue. Yeah.
Right. And, why is it called black box in Korea? Is it because like the black box of an airline, it is used, when the airline crashes, and this black box is used when there is, to analyze why a crash happened or something like that, when something goes wrong, like an accident or something. Is that why it is called a black box?
Yeah, that black box. Yeah, that kind of like flight recorder. I think that's the origin for like dash cams. Yeah.
Okay.
being called.
And what did you tell these Uber drivers? Because this is not necessarily an easy concept to tell them that, oh, this is a smart dash cam, right? It is looking inside the vehicle. It is also looking outside the vehicle. And in addition to that, you can do all these various things, right? It also comes with an app, which allows you to track all these things, right? So did you have all the functionality when you sold the first 25 units to the drivers? Did you have all these functionalities already in place, or did you tell them that, look, these are the features that are coming?
Yeah, so the software stack was, iterative process well, and we changed things up, quite a bit, just redoing the entire thing. But functionalities wise, at that point, we had these three: dash cam, blue mechanic, and mile saver. It is a lot better now. And by the way, like individual modules will continue to get software improvements. But as for kind of like product understanding, it's a hard narrative, right? Kind of this platform story. And as not marketing person, I've been kind of figuring this part out. But basically, we focus on the pain points, right? All these pain points around, every driver that you see out there has had bad passengers, or even, them kind of making these claims about what happened, and even getting terminated by, like these fleet operators. I know several. And mileage tracking, like many drivers actually aren't aware that like Uber and Lyft's 1099 doesn't track all miles, like less than half, only when passengers inside the car, not when you're going home or getting gas. And Blue Mechanic obviously goes through lots of wear and tear, and just reading the check engine light costs money. So we just focus on these pain points and show them what it does, just real life, not instead of just talking about it. And it was kind of a media understanding, because those pain points are kind of universal across the space. And that's not even just for kind of gig economy drivers, actually, even for 1099 drivers, those same pain points are kind of exactly the same. Like, for example, like one of my best friends from home is like a contractor who does kind of who drives around and fixes furniture. And mileage tracking, even working for a company like that, they had to just write it down manually, sometimes forgetting and missing, all the way up to like $50,000 extra deductions that you can find. So it was. So
for people who are outside the United States, what we are talking about here is that when you use your car for business purposes, you can deduct the miles that you rode as for tax purposes. You could say that, oh, my car had a wear and tear because I drove my car for business purposes, and you have to track those miles, right? And to do that, what Minsoo was mentioning is that Uber and Lyft do not track all the miles correctly. And this device, because it's connected to the canvas, which we will talk about in a bit, it's able to track all the miles correctly. And also, the way the software is organized, it's going to produce the form that is required for you to submit in the correct format for your tax purposes. So, this is basically thinking through the process really deeply, because I know the pain point as a small business owner myself. I used to do my taxes until 2017, 2018 also. And it was such a pain it used to take me an entire week to put together my taxes. So it's, making things easy for drivers. It's really beneficial.
Yeah, and part of the reason why we focus on like working drivers is because they're the ones that benefit the most from this kind of all-in-one solution, right? Like most of the drivers, they kind of have this like one specific needs, but in terms of like the solutions that we're putting out as a first developers into Copilot, all of these tools add in a lot of value for just drivers out there, I think.
Minsoo, so people, if you could speak a little bit louder.
I tried adjusting the volume. Is this?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just. Yeah, how about that?
All right.
So increase a couple decibels and you'll be good.
Right.
All right. Okay. So the roadmap. On the platform, a lot of things can be done, especially with kind of the computer vision and the vehicle integrations. We're taking a careful approach to it, kind of focusing on this utility tools first. So as first developers in Copilot, kind of starting with these utility tools, we plan on continue to listen to customers to improve those tools, as well as just continue to add more and more applications that will be helpful to widest possible group of drivers, and carefully release this over time, just continuously. On the immediate horizon, we plan on kind of including actually good collision warning, and you might see like a kind of a dash cam gadget that has ADAS features, and some of them I believe does work, but most it is kind of a kind of traditional computer vision kind of put together. But you can look up YouTube videos, but it doesn't really work, and that's actually my frustration as well. So this one, actually just using OAK-D, just trained robust model that will provide good collision warning for you, drowsiness monitor, and also highway autonomy with OpenPilot initially that will scale to full self-driving over time. And I'll get to that in a bit.
So yeah, one of the things that that's really powerful about this device is that it comes with inside it we have a MediaTek chip. Basically, it's the OAK-D architecture, and most devices in this category, they use very weak processors, right? Not something as powerful as Intel's MediaTek, which allows you to do run neural networks. In most of these other dash cams, you won't have that power to run neural networks or do stereo processing on the fly, real-time stereo processing. So that makes this device extremely powerful for doing good collision warning, etc. Right?
Yeah, and I'm hoping you guys will, like deploy your models as well as just contribute and just continue to make this better together. And yeah, before kind of going into the kind of longer term story, here's a video of our launch video, and I'll just play it to give you like the full context. Audio is working, right?
Meet Frank.
Okay, awesome.
He loves to drive. Frank is his own boss, but he's also his own insurance agent, mechanic, receptionist, accountant, and security guard. Driving on your own isn't easy. That's why we created the Bluebox Copilot, the smart driving assistant built by working drivers for working drivers. Just mount Copilot to your windshield and connect it to your OBD2 port. Copilot works with any car made after 1996. We designed Copilot to help with everything from car accidents to finding extra tax deductions. We then simplified everything down to just 4 modules. The first one is called Dashcam. With its dual cameras, Copilot is always on loop, recording live video as you drive. Need to prove an accident wasn't your fault? You can browse Copilot's recorded videos and download them to your cloud storage or phone. Copilot's neural processing unit lets it run helpful computer vision apps like mass detection.
Please put on your mask.
Or collision detection. And when you're done recording, just close the privacy switch. One of the hardest parts of being a driver is tracking your miles. So-called tracking apps often lose signal, and apps like Uber don't count certain trips in their 1099 that should be tax deductible. Enter Copilot's Mile Saver. It automatically tracks your mileage and calculates the tax savings. All you have to do is tag each drive as personal or business. Copilot records all your tax deductible miles, like your commute and trips for gas. Plus, you can easily export an IRS compliant log for tax filing. Mile Saver can help you find up to $15,000 in lost tax deductions per year. Wondering what's going on with your engine? Copilot's Blue Mechanic has the answers. It can do an instant vehicle diagnosis, letting you know exactly what your check engine light means. Blue Mechanic also logs your vehicle alerts and maintenance history, saving you time and money on frequent checkups. Worried about your car while you're away? Copilot Security Cam module guards your vehicle 24/7. It can give you real-time break-in and hit-and-run alerts, so you can react immediately. For drivers like Frank, Copilot makes life a lot easier. But this is just the beginning. Copilot is a development platform, which means it will be upgraded to do even more in the future. Copilot is integrated with Comma AI Panda and OpenPilot, so it will even enable highway autonomy for compatible cars. We went through 4 years of iterations to get Copilot ready. We're now set to volume manufacture and deliver a high-quality product to you on time. And when we ship, we'll be providing access to developers working on computer vision and robotics projects.
Copilot makes smart driving assistant technology accessible for everyone. We have the technical background, amazing and supportive partners, and experiences working drivers to build something that can be a true Copilot for you. We've seen firsthand how Copilot can help drivers, and now we're on Kickstarter to continue growing the Copilot community. The funds we raise will be used for manufacturing and improving the Copilot even more. We made it this far thanks to our community of drivers. Join us, and we can bring the Copilot to the world.
Meet Frank. He
Stop. Okay. The jazz hands thing, the producer made me do it. Just putting it out there. Okay. So yeah, going into kind of hardware. Oh, and by the way, the security cam, the 24/7 security camera is the new application that we actually added in between the proof of concept unit and the commercial version. And as mentioned, yeah, we'll be adding more and more.
By the way, it's a very well made Kickstarter video. Congratulations on that. I really liked it. It obviously, it is targeted towards the campaign itself is targeted towards people who are drivers themselves, but there is a lot of things for developers that you're going to talk about now.
Yeah. I mean, what we're finding is kind of like Kickstarter as a platform. Working drivers aren't really exactly familiar. They're kind of asking what happens on the side. So yeah, we're working on kind of both ends, and really trying to kind of share more on the kind of developer side and what this enables and like kind of longer-term roadmap. So yeah, like going into that like hardware, as mentioned, there's an OBD module that plugs into the OBD port and provides power and data, that 12-volt power from your car's battery, and the CAN bus data to the hinge that attaches your Copilot to the windshield. And communication-wise, it comes with for the AI version LTE, but for both versions, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And as mentioned, Intel MiraX in the AI version, they all have 160 degrees like wide angle 1080p camera, and in the AI version, stereo depth camera as well, and also 9-axis IMU that can provide the orientation and acceleration data you might need in some of the projects, to infrared night vision, and a USB-C port that is actually USB-C, not this OBD-C, that is this guy that's USB, that actually that we use all the time for Ethernet connection for the Copilot, to HDMI output, to even adding in other cameras or whatever other sensors that you like to kind of put together with that. And we're like the OBD side, we're actually using that right now for obviously mouse saver and blue mechanic, but even dash cam. The kind of uniqueness is, instead of like trying to use this kind of GPS sensor to kind of get the speed data for the text overlay and the dash cam for evidence, like I wasn't speeding. We actually pull that information directly from the vehicle, and it is 100% accurate. That is real time.
So just to, if you could go back that in the previous slide. So all this data, there are multiple cameras, and then there is all the information that is streaming from the car's CAN bus. And all this data, the IMU data, etc., they are synchronized, right? They have a timestamp, so you know exactly what is the state of the car and the state of the surrounding based on this module, right? The Copilot. And now it becomes it's an awesome data collection thing. If you're building your own small application, then you can collect a lot of data using, and everything is synchronized using this module. Everything is synchronized. And in the future, I'm guessing that some people may be ready to share their data with the public, they'll be obviously informed, and they will consent to sharing the data. And then it becomes a very huge network of car data that everybody can use. So this is a very rich source of information for people who want to get into self-driving, or want to have access to that data at a large scale, but do not currently have, right? Like the Googles of the world are not going to share that data with us. So, but if you have a large community of people who are sharing the data from their car voluntarily, then we can create something very useful for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. And for like the kind of like your own projects, if you like to just go like drive around and collect some data, there's I forgot to mention, but SD card slot that saves everything, and there's also eMMC obviously on the board as well. But the same USB-C port I mentioned, you can actually just hook up like a giant hard drive to it and dump all the data in there as well if you like. And on the kind of data collection side, so we value privacy extremely, and kind of data collection, and the only reason would be to kind of build and train these new applications that will actually add value back to the drivers. And on the data collection side, we won't be collecting unless we get the permission as mentioned. So it will be opt-in. And if you do opt-in, you'll get some credits for, let's say, like a security camera subscription and things like that. But yeah, your privacy will it won't be shared, and yeah, you'll surely be opt-in. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, it's also Uber drivers who are good, responsible drivers may want, you know, some insurance companies may want to say that, oh, if you share this data with us and we establish that you're a good driver, you can get discounts for that, right? And it would be opt-in, obviously. You know, privacy is a big concern in this area, and so it should be opt-in. But you can imagine that people who want to share the data and want to get credit for it because it proves conclusively that they are good drivers, right? The way they are driving, they're not speeding, etc. They could get a huge discount from some insurance companies. So we'll see how this plays out, but it's very exciting. And not only that, I mean, when we have a collection of people who are ready to share data, it can also be used by mapping companies, you know, to or you know, you can build an open source mapping solution where these maps are updated every hour or so, right? Instead of Google Maps Street View, which is updated every year or so. I don't know, maybe not even a year. So the possibilities are amazing once this thing becomes widely adopted.
Yeah, and with the kind of the opt-in data that I mentioned, so we plan on releasing like some of the curated data set to OpenCV community and just kind of hobbyists who are like looking to work at their own projects and such. But yeah, the entirety and focus of all this is just to help drivers. And and kind of diving into kind of Canvas, which might not be familiar for some of you guys. It is called a controller area network. And essentially in your car, sorry, there's one more thing I wanted to say that I just remembered. So with insurance companies, we actually will be reaching out and trying to make a deal for premiums as well, because that kind of policy is kind of sparse in the US. And we'll be doing kind of everything in terms of not just the kind of product development side, but make this kind of insurance discounts and other things that make sense for Copilot to add as much value to drivers as possible. And going back to Canvas, so basically in your vehicle, there are essentially just like bunch of this like Apollo 11 kind of tiny computers just talking to each other, from like the touchscreen kind of media center to ECUs for kind of odometer, et cetera. And it is talking to each other on this thing called CAN bus that is exposed in the OBD2 port. And essentially, we're kind of tapping into that to get this data and making it available for you guys as well as customers promptly. And
one quick thing that I wanted to, so with Canvas data, some of the data gets labeled automatically. Think about it this way, that you want to find, because this video could be hours and hours of video once you collect your own data. And how do you know when you hit a dangerous situation, right? So you could look at the canvas data and see where the brakes were slammed, and using that information, you can actually find out, oh, let me go and check out this part of the video because here the brakes were slammed, right? So now it becomes a much, it's self-labeling in some sense, right? Based on how the driver is driving the vehicle, you can actually find instances inside the video stream where you need to look.
Yeah, exactly. And
also the other way around, right? If you're driving in a, if your video camera data you are trying to analyze and you see that, oh, the speed limit was say 70 miles an hour and you were driving at the canvas data says that you were driving at 80 miles an hour. This could be used to train the drivers that, no, don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, like there are many things. I mean, I'll talk about like one thing later, but yeah, there are obviously a lot of things that we can enable with this, and we're looking forward to like what the developers look at that come up with in terms of like hopefully some like quirky applications that will be running a Copilot. Yeah, so kind of going back to the original title of the webinar, what is a robot? And in this sense, I'm talking about like autonomous agent as opposed to kind of this actuator platform like the robot arm or something like that. And like example that I kind of give, so like to quote like Andre Kapati, basically, I think the easiest analogy for kind of explain this kind of black box approach to robotics is just our brain, right? So it is this meat computer carbon base that is essentially starting off with hyperparameters like your architecture that you are born with from your genetics and such, and the experience that you go through in life that programs it, right? And kind of getting to this higher and higher level of abstraction in terms of decision making, from learning to walk to what you're today, and that journey that shaped you. And we believe that is a scalable approach for enabling robotics actually in the real world. So kind of going into the traditional approach that I studied, essentially is trying to turn the real world into a simulation. It kind of takes a third person perspective where they utilize this $400,000 like really expensive vehicle shooting lasers everywhere, and kind of pre-draws all the kind of lanes, as you can see, intersection curves, et cetera, and essentially, draws a path for the vehicle to follow in that kind of third-person view, and car follows it. It is like more of a kind of virtual train conducting. So this is a great approach for kind of short-term like A to B demo in a geofenced area. But for this to work, basically it has to be in this geofenced area that is completely scanned just constantly, which costs a lot of capital. And that process just has to be repeated in basically every city that you go to. If you just pick up a Waymo car and drop it in, let's say it's some like Japan highway, it just won't know what to do. And what we believe is a scalable approach is this, as mentioned, kind of black box approach that is kind of from the first person view, like kind of relying mostly on the vision, like humans. So one primary example is Tesla. And essentially kind of looking at the roadmap, it might be easier to understand where kind of starting off with this highway autonomy, kind of this, follow the lane line, to learning to make a decision of when to change lane lines, learning to make the decision of when to take the exit ramp, and learning how to stop, like detect and make the decision to stop a traffic stop. And this iterative, continuous approach that comes with real world testing, seeing what works, what doesn't work, feeding the data to make it work, and redeploying just this loop that just runs over and over again. And that is what we believe and are seeing is the actually scalable approach. And we're essentially trying to kind of democratize that. So with this kind of largest fleet that enables this roadmap for full self-driving and adding that value to drivers, Tesla still being the largest fleet, the right edge compute and right sensor suite to actually enable that. There's still less than 1% of the vehicle market share. We're we did our everything to make this as affordable as possible, and we're trying to democratize this technology to the 99% of existing vehicles. And there are some examples of like edge cases there, and as mentioned, like famous thing. Like one of the basic quote here is like simulations are doomed to succeed, right? Real world is a chaotic place, and yeah, it will just need this iterative, deployment that just slowly learns over time to be able to just deal with this chaotic real world robustly. And yeah, kind of concluding on that, we're building this kind of unique community where working drivers and AI researchers and developers are kind of coming together to add this value to as many drivers as possible. And especially for developers, like there are many kind of applications that can be built out that adds value. And we are, again, like a very small team and trying to stay focused in terms of our roadmap for just adding these utility applications. But yeah, we're really excited to seeing these new applications come out. I mean, like one kind of example that I have is if you are on a road trip and you're bored, you can play punch buggy or license plate game with the co-pilot. Just you can have a difficulty setting or something like that. But anywho, so with the Kickstarter, we're kind of beginning out, but we have pretty ambitious roadmap in terms of the value that we want to add. And please join us in our Kickstarter and follow us for future updates. And yeah, I'll take any questions. Yeah.
So I have a question for developers, right? On behalf of the developers.
Yep.
So suppose I'm a developer and I get this kit. I develop, let's say, I develop a neural network model that does something very interesting that it doesn't already come with the device, which I feel that is very useful for drivers, right? Now, how does it happen? Will you have a marketplace where all the people can download this, pay something, the drivers can pay something and download this app or a network model that works on the device?
Yeah.
Do you envision something like that happening? Or tell me more about how can an independent developer develop something for this for the co-pilot and make it available for the drivers and get paid for it?
Yeah, so that's what that's what's in the background. Like, we've been thinking about this a lot, and initially you will be able to just kind of like run your own applications and build it out. But if it's a good enough product, it should obviously be downloadable for other co-pilots as well, right? So yep. We plan on building some kind of like approval process and some kind of this collection where you can just simply download the applications to the co-pilot. And on that kind of like the modular side, actually, one thing I forgot to mention, we'll be announcing the stretch goal soon, but co-pilot hardware is designed to be modular as well for kind of expanding needs. And the same USB-C port will be launching a kind of accessory that allows you to essentially plug in a rear view camera or a side mirror camera into it as well for that kind of extra 360 coverage and yeah, other sensors as mentioned.
That's great. So you're saying that suppose you could have a third-party rear view camera which actually plugs into this device using the USB-C port?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, we'll be launching like the rear view camera, and they'll be added to the Kickstarter soon as a stretch goal. Yeah. And yeah.
All right. So let's open it up to the audience.
Let's do trivia first. So As Satya mentioned earlier, we will be, Minsoo has graciously decided to give the winner of today's trivia question a Copilot. It won't be shipping until February, I think you said. Okay. So the way this works is you will answer the question in the chat window. The first person that shows up on my screen with the right answer will win a Bluebox Copilot. During the presentation, Minsoo mentioned that Bluebox will work with automobiles manufactured after a certain year. What year is that?
Wow, that was fast.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm scrolling up. Wow, y'all were so quick. I see Seth Johnson is our winner here. So congratulations. The answer was 1996. Congratulations, Seth. We'll be in touch after the show to get in touch with you about how to make sure you get your prize.
So what's the thing about 1996? Is it that the interface was standardized that year, or?
Yeah, basically the OBD2 being required, and not all vehicles like from 1996 use CAN bus. The higher level protocol on top of the CAN bus is called PID. That's what kind of mechanics use, and what we're using actually also based on that. That will also be added in for full support. Like 1996 as a year specifically is just like US federal mandate for every car having OBD2 port being.
Got it. So it was by law. It was by law, so they had to have it. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so let's do some Q&A here. We got a whole bunch of questions from people. We'll start out with a relatively easy one here. People are asking about the SDK. When is the on your roadmap? When do people get SDK?
Yeah, so as the first developers, like from the hardware side up, we're building that out. Again, like we're a pretty small core team right now, and right now our bandwidth is mostly focused around kind of the utility products. It should be available by the time we ship, however, with the kind of scaling plan that we have. Yeah.
So by February, is that what you?
That's the target right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. And what will the features be for this first version of the SDK?
Essentially access to like basically what we went over in terms of like the hardware access. So CAN bus access, as well as the computer vision processor, and all the sensor suite that is inside the Copilot, stereo vision, as well as IMU data, et cetera, et cetera.
So there is stereo vision, there is the back, the camera facing the passengers. And then we also have the CAN bus data, IMU data, all of those would be accessible, right?
Yeah.
That's great. Speaking of features, a couple people have mentioned LiDAR, specifically asking, did Bluebox consider using some kind of LiDAR in addition to or in place of the stereo cameras?
No, we're not exactly big fan. I mean, the LiDAR itself will kind of quadruple the price, and we didn't see the value of that specific depth sensor for our applications and the long-term roadmap. I mean, one example would be we don't shoot lasers from our eyes, but yeah.
Well, it's also it's a very interesting question because, if you had asked this question 10 years back, or would a device that costs, a few $100s have a LiDAR, it would be a very funny question, right? Because LiDARs used to be tens of thousands of dollars, as far as I can remember. Yeah. And now the prices have come down so much that a phone has a LiDAR, and it's a very valid question to ask, right? That's the amazing thing about technology, how prices just come down.
Yeah. I mean, and like AI processor, we're also counting on like it being more powerful and commoditized, right? But LiDAR specifically, there's especially for the longer range that you need, the power usage, as well as like the LiDAR itself actually is kind of interesting. I think Velodyne used to do something completely different, and LiDAR kind of before the DARPA challenge was this like single beam, like really small thing. And to make this kind of software stack work, I think the fully scanning LiDAR that is what is today kind of was built for that actually, the DARPA challenge. And we are not trying to kind of like discount the value of LiDAR. It is a great sensor that provides this 360 depth view, and it is really cool to work with. Just kind of putting out this point clouds, but for the kind of like in terms of like serving the environment, the vehicle, we don't think it's the right fit, and I don't think it's necessary for the long-term roadmap we're enabling.
Cool. More hardware questions here. Someone was wondering, could you talk a little bit more about why did you choose a 9 degree of freedom sensor in there instead of maybe a simpler one?
That's for the long-term roadmap. We're gonna need that data for example, like when you're actually driving up like a steep hill, the perspective just completely changes, right? The road just becomes narrower, and that kind of like 9x like absolute orientation data we'll need for the kind of long-term product roadmap that we have with the Copilot.
Cool.
We're using that right now for security camera detection, by the way, the break-in detection and waking up the Copilot from the Copilot mode.
And is there a big difference between price-wise? Is there a big difference between something which is simpler and this 9 degree IMU?
They're mostly similar prices. This is slightly more expensive, but this is a sensor that there are a lot of IMUs out there, but this is what I found to be most reliable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Could you unshare your screen if you don't mind? Awesome. Thanks. Now everybody can see how bad my hair looks today. So we've got a few more questions here. Thanks again, everybody, for, I mean, they were really eating this up. So a couple people were asking about GPS. How is Bluebox using the GPS data currently, and is there does using that GPS like in any way, what are the plans for using GPS data in the future, I guess is what the question is.
We're using it right now, actually. So yeah, there is a GPS, GNSS sensors. That's just not GPS like Galileo included as well. But in dashcam, there's an option that is kind of pre-enabled. There, the coordinates of that GNSS data is logged with the correct speed that you're driving, as well as a timestamp. It's a text overlay in the bottom of the video. And in MileSaver, we're actually using that. So we're using odometer data because it's not affected by, let's say, going to tunnels or something for actual mileage count. But there is a GPS kind of a path that goes along with it that shows you actually the kind of the route that you took as well. So we're using that right now, and yeah, many applications that you think of that might benefit from it. Yeah, that'll be the answer.
A lot of people are asking about privacy, understandably so.
Yep.
What are like the options for, how much somebody shares, or like, can they choose to just store everything locally and not, talk to the cloud at all? Or default, like what degrees of granularity are there?
By default, it is all local storage and just that. So only with like your decision. So there is a cloud storage for dash cams as well, but that also will be your data. And if you want to upload it, you have the option of doing so, but there won't be any automatic data collection like when you receive the device at all.
That's the right format.
Yeah, and
yeah,
it'll
that's
be
awesome.
opt-in and yeah, so like for the drivers who does opt-in, yeah, we plan on providing this like subscription credit for security cam and other feature products and things like that as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's the right choice. I mean, privacy first is, some people it's a buzzword, but it seems like you're really walking the walk, and that's pretty cool.
Privacy is a one-way street. I like to say that it's a one-way street. Once it is lost, you don't get it back, right? So it is very important that people are very careful about it. Yeah.
Totally agree. OpenCV has a global audience, and so a lot of people have been asking. A lot of the content we discussed here was pretty US centric. Are there any pitfalls or issues that you see with releasing Copilot worldwide, say Europe, Japan, etc.?
Yeah, so we initially set it as a US and North America only for the AI version because we're using North American modem for LTE, and we're thinking about like manufacturing complexity and maybe bringing it down. But it seems like that won't be that big of a deal, and but there's no real block for just using worldwide region modem. And Copilot, both versions, AI and Lite, are both available worldwide, and we don't really see any pitfalls right now. I mean, there might be cases where a few drivers purchase, Copilot when there's no OBD 2.4 access, but even then, for most of the features like dash cam and even security camera, all you will need is a cigarette lighter plug that provides 12 volt, and we'll have accessories for that as well.
Cool. There's also some questions about what are the frame rates and video feed formats configurable, or like what are the settings for those?
Yeah, so with the sensor that we're using right now, 1080p, 720p, 60 fps, 30 fps. Yeah.
Cool. So 1080p at 60.
1080p at 30 fps, I believe, at 720p at 60 fps, because we're running a lot of cameras.
Yeah, that makes sense. More questions about the Oak. I actually have one of my own. I noticed that the baseline is a lot wider on the Bluebox than on the Oak D module. Is that just for like distance purposes, or can you talk a little bit about why that is?
Yeah, that's for deeper depth, distance purposes. We will need to do more testing, but yeah, it significantly increases the depth.
And this happens a lot, right, Phil? When people use Oak D for their specific devices, they come to us for, and Laxanis for configuring it for their specific needs, right? The Oak D that we have published, it is for consumer needs, but when you're trying to make an industrial device out of it, then you may have different needs, and we configure, we help in that configuration as well.
Yeah, and it makes sense. What are the minimum and maximum distance on the Bluebox for depth?
Right now, we have like few contractors outside, but we're like 4-person team. We saw that it can do like 30 meters, but we haven't like tested extensively yet. Right now, we're putting like 35 meters, kind of a guarantee in terms of depth perception.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty big improvement in distance over the stock module for sure. People were asking about some of the hardware that's already in cars now. Like a lot of automobiles these days have built-in, backup cameras and stuff like that. Does Bluebox interface with those, or is that a thing in the future, or is it not something you're really worried about?
I mean, we can, and like hardware and software platform are both modular because, like let's say you want to use some of the features, but they have like the decision to put the rear view camera plugged into Copilot and things like that, that is driver's personal decision for a case that makes sense for them. And as far as kind of pulling the stock rear camera, if there is a sensible way to do it, we're not opposed to it, but we're really focusing more on kind of adding this capability to drivers that doesn't have it yet.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. We're hitting up on time. You want to take us home, Satya?
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining this. And Minsoo, thank you so much for this presentation. It was very illuminating, and I wish you all the best in your Kickstarter campaign. And I hope that people watching this webinar will also support you in your campaign. Amazing product. I wish you all the best. And Phil, thank you for, as always, for organizing this thing. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, everybody. We will see you next week, Thursday, 9 a.m. sharp.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks
Okay.
again, Phil. Yeah,
Sounds
it
good.
was great sharing this story here. All right.
Thank you.
Take care, folks.
Bye.
Thanks so much for watching this episode of the webinar. Please hit that like button, subscribe, and don't forget to tap the little bell icon to be notified when new episodes drop. This week's episode was brought to you by OpenCV Courses. Visit opencv.org/courses to learn from the experts.